We know the Pogues are good with treasure hunting, but how will they handle purses?
Is there something Mr. Genrette isn't telling them about this offer?
How are Pope and Sarah gonna get out of the catacombs before they flood?
And what's going on with JJ?
Hitting the cut and looking for some golden riches, Red and Red Real Reviews prepares for our most anticipated show yet, part 1 of Netflix's Outer Banks, season 4.
Ahoy, ladies! Didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor?
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Been staring at this board for days.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Act. Bears eat beets.
My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I am the one who knocks.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh my god. The microchip has been compromised.
Dracarys.
Welcome back. Oh, wow. It's been, what, 4 years since we last got to chat it up for real about Outer Banks instead of just tantalizing us to make us think it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I mean this premiered during COVID, didn't it? It was 2020, I think, in the spring or something.
I don't know if it premiered during COVID, but that was definitely the last season. Like, I don't think there's been any seasons in between. I thought the show premiered before COVID.
No, I think it did come out in 2020.
Well, that's
I just don't know
impressive,
what
then.
time of year, but yeah, it's been, I mean, that's why it's been pretty much a season a year, I think, because we're on the fourth season now.
Well, that's impressive because it certainly has felt like it's been eons since the last one.
I know, yeah, it's definitely been at least a year, I think. Feels like it.
Anyway, episode Quattro of Red and Red Real Reviews kicks off, and we got to prime ourselves for this one because we got to ask ourselves, what have we been missing most about the Outer Banks squad in anticipation for its return?
Oh man. I mean, I do like John B and Sarah. I like their relationship. Like they're not perfect, right? But they are cute together. And I kind of forget sometimes that I think it was last season too, they weren't together anymore. Chase Stokes and Madeline Klein. I don't think they were together anymore last season, but you still kind of forget because they just have such good on-screen chemistry. Yeah.
Yeah, and that and they're appealing even though how they got together is kind of cliche. Like it's
It's
the
kind of
typical Hollywood fall in love through a traumatic experience.
And it's kind of flawed too, because didn't she like go back to Topper, or there was some situation where her and John B broke up and she like was dating Topper again, and kind of like I don't know if there was any cheating or anything, but yeah, there is kind of like a flawed past. Like it's not perfect.
Yeah, it was kind of like I don't necessarily want to say if memory recalls, I don't necessarily want to say it was her trying to make John be jealous, but it was kind of like please realize what you're losing here if I go back to Topper kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like an in
Yeah.
betweener.
Yeah, so a little bit of drama with them, but now everything is good. They've been good for a while. So yeah, I was excited to see them together again. And I really just I'm a fan of JJ. So everything he does, his antics, like there were a few moments in this season where he was a little bit frustrating, but I mean, he was going through some things kind of. So, but I do normally enjoy like his banter, some of the funny lines, like when he's really in a pickle where he's like escaping, or just the funny things that happen when he's running from the law and things like that.
And it's so funny to me how like the three boys are like JJ and Pope kind of they're like yin and yang. Where
Yeah.
JJ's so off the wall and you never know what he's gonna do 1 minute to the
Yeah.
next, and Pope's so even keeled and level headed. And then John B's kind of in the middle. Like John
Yeah.
B can be very rational,
Hmm.
rational and think things out with a lot of reason, but he can also be very kind of off the cuff and random and kind of react from the gut, so to speak,
Yeah, and
for
I
lack of a
think
better word.
I feel like in past seasons, there was even a moment in this season where the part with Terrence, in the house. And so
Mhm.
literally JJ turns to John B and he says, "All right, it's up to you. What are we doing? You have to
Yeah,
make a decision fast." So I feel like, in that moment and in the past seasons, they've kind of looked to John B as like the leader of the pack.
later, you know. Mhm.
And it seems like this season, like kind of from the beginning, that JJ kind of took it upon himself to try to be a little bit more of in front of the pack.
I That's actually funny because I thought that was kind of like the John B recognized as leader to me was more of a subtlety. And
Mm,
like in that moment, it was almost um I don't want to say altruistic, but like I also don't want to say like an out of body experience for JJ to kind of like take his hands off the reins and be like, okay, fearless leader, give me my marching orders kind of deal.
I think it was because JJ had messed up with the racing thing.
Oh, I felt bad, man, a little guilt.
Yeah, I think it was, and I mean we could talk a little bit more about that later, but the fact that he was the one who kind of messed up and he kind of expressed some anger towards John B, which I didn't really
Mhm.
think was warranted. So I
Yeah,
think he did kind of feel bad about that. So he was like, okay, I'm not going to just fly by the seat of my pants and make a decision. Like, I'm asking you this time, like, with
yeah,
respect, like, what are we going to do? Like,
yeah.
I'm looking at you.
Especially considering the race was saved for an Evil Knievel type of stunt. JJ was out of that race.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole thing was crazy, but it's just that's just how they had that show That's So Raven, like it almost like there could
That's
be a
so
show that's
JJ.
like That's So JJ, like that's just something he does, like
Yeah.
he just does these shenanigans and gets out of tough situations, and that's just who he is.
Like there was at one point, Sarah looks at Kiara and goes, does your boyfriend think ever? And she goes like, no, not once.
Yeah.
Not once, not ever.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Um, so we kind of pick up a little where we left off, where we had the mysterious old man visits the Pogues. They're getting
Mhm.
honored for uncovering El Dorado, and he presents this quest to find Blackbeard's treasure. So we kind of are expecting the story just to pick up and get right into it,
Mm.
but they kind of give us a little backstory and set up like a year and a half of kind of peacetime, I guess, before that interaction actually occurs.
Yeah, so it was funny that we get the 18 months earlier kind of thing,
Yeah,
and then it just shows them kind of building their life out on their own. It shows Key's parents being like, you can't bring JJ anywhere near here, like we don't want him around here. And
yeah.
so then it's like, okay, well, we're gonna have our own life we're gonna build our own Poglandia. I don't remember who had the idea to build the bait shop and do all of that, but they were really all banded together to get all of that built. It showed, kind of a montage of them getting the materials for the house and, buying the boat and fixing things up and getting everything ready to to start off on the right foot and to make some money and get this bait shop going and have it be successful. But still it's like I it's almost like the beginning of when they're like, we're going to be on our own and screw our parents, like we're not going to go back to them and rely on them. And it was sort of like a honeymoon phase of like, we're doing it and we're on our own and we're rebels and we're pogues over here. And then it started to evolve, because then Pope is like, okay, we really got to tighten the purse strings, like we have this money that we need to pay. And the more I'm thinking that, I'm like, how are they going to be happy all living together and depending on the same source of money when you're trying to come up with a living for, I didn't even count, but it's what, 6 or 7 people?
Uh, 6? Yeah, 6.
Is it 3 girls, 3 boys?
Three girls, 3 boys.
Yeah, so it's like 6 people. Like,
Everyone's shipped now.
yeah. Yeah, everyone's all paired up, but it's like, and even when Mr. Genrette offers $50,000 for this, they're like thinking about this tax payment they have coming up or something like that. But it's like, dude, if you split 50,000 between 6 people, like typically it's not that much money. Like when you have to split something so many ways, like how are you guys going to earn a good living? Like even so, like if you are successful with this shop and everyone from around the area comes around, like how are you going to sustain this?
Yeah, I mean they were worried about splitting the difference after they bought JJ's property back, let alone the booty from Mr. Genrette.
Oh man, that the whole bidding thing was so frustrating because
David, what are you doing?
For Pope to say, and you have this like decrepit old house, you know, and it's just like, oh dear Lord, like 775,000 or whatever ended up going for. It's just like disgusting how much money it sold for when it's like a shack.
I still wonder like how the maths in that situation because they had a little over $1 million left. So if they've got like 400 or 500 grand left over and they're all doing the labor themselves, like I understand they had to buy the boat and they had to buy fuel and they had to get the garden going, but they did all the labor themselves. I still don't understand how they didn't make that left and they only had one little gold nugget left to pay the property taxes. The math, I'm like, okay, maybe it took that much, but the math doesn't totally math to me here.
Well, I think to I don't know if it's Pope who was saying like, you guys, you know, can't be spending $200 or $300 on heirloom tomato seeds, and you can't be spending $300 on this. And so he was kind of, you know, nickel and diming them and in saying that they can't be so frivolous. But like to me, it didn't seem like they were being all that frivolous. You know, the house is kind of like all made up of like all these different pieces and you know it's
the cooler, the secondhand cooler that they basically walked out for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, it didn't seem like they were freewheeling it there.
Yeah, it seemed like they were kind of making the most of what they could find and being really resourceful. So it like how could they drop like a few $100,000? I'm not really sure.
Yeah. What was kind of like the pacing of that? Did that feel like to you as far as okay, everything's all at peace. You know something's gonna happen. You know there's gonna be a treasure hunt. So it's like to me, it kind of felt like this is a too good to be true thing. Like everything's all happy and virtuous, and it's like, well, this isn't gonna last. There's gonna be some drama.
Yeah, that's how it goes with every show or movie. It's like when in the beginning everyone's all happy and they're like, gee, it's so weird that it's so quiet and like peaceful around here. It's like, nah, you're just inviting the chaos.
Yeah. And real quick, aesthetic of them all doing the work themselves. I mean, like to me, there's an appeal to that because in modern society with more white collar type of jobs and industries and that sort of thing, to me seeing people doing all this work themselves and refurbishing a house on their own, to me there's an appeal to that because it's kind of a, I don't want to be so cliche as to say it takes us back to a simpler time, but it has kind of that attractiveness.
Well, yeah, I mean,
seeing it visualized.
Thinking of especially John B and JJ, they've kind of lived on their own without parents around a lot so you know, JJ's at one point he's under the Twinkie fixing it, and then I don't know if he's changing the oil or what he's doing, and then you know they're pretty, and then they have Pope who's kind of, I mean, I wouldn't even say he's more book smart because I do think he's very logical, he's very practical, but yeah, they kind of have all the bases covered, and Sarah and Cleo kind of take over as like, I don't want to say administrative, but they're like always good to just be there to they're like, okay, I'll do a shift at the store. I'll do this. Like they all kind of pitch in, Cleo
Mhm.
saying that it was her day to feed the bait or something like that. So they all kind of take the responsibilities because aside from Key, who's, a kook, so she's kind of grown up rich and doesn't really know the kind of hardships that John B and JJ have dealt with,
Yeah.
but they all kind of do their part and they all become versed in different things to help out.
He is, as they would say in Harry Potter, a muggle.
Yeah.
One kook parent and one pogue parent.
Yeah.
uh, so I don't want to necessarily be cliche and ask if you believe in ghosts and curses as far as how the story gets set up here. But what were the moments with this Mr. Genrette arc that led you to believe that something wasn't quite right? Something's like Spidey senses going off.
I mean, from the moment that it was at the end of the first episode where they literally walk into the Genret house and Chandler Groff is at the door and he's like, oh, Mr. Genret is inside, so come on in. And so before he closes the door and like it ends the episode, he kind of like looks outside the door and like he just looks very sus.
He
And
did. He did look a little. Yeah. I don't.
right
I didn't necessarily have a good feeling from him.
from that moment, I was like, okay, this guy is strange. And then when they agree to take the offer, it just tipped off something in my head when JJ was like, he just marched in there, was like, yeah, oh, we're gonna do it. And they hadn't even like, yes, they had discussed it, but he just kind of took it upon himself. Like they hadn't really said that they would do it. And he would just said, marched forward and said, we'll do it. And Mr. Genrette was like, I believe in you, JJ. And you're like, you're like, like, does he know their names? And
Mhm.
B, why JJ? Like, why is he like, I have faith in you, JJ? When like, yes, like maybe there was that article that he saw
Yeah.
that's why he went to find them about their treasure hunting. But like, how would he know specifically like what part JJ played? And then at one point, I don't know if he was looking at the article or at what point it was, but he was literally gazing at a picture of the Pogues, probably from that newspaper. And he like zoomed in on JJ. And I was like, okay, what is this? Like, what is this dude's fixation on JJ?
So I gotta ask, when JJ came in and said, "Yeah, we'll do it," I just figured that was JJ being JJ. Now the affirmation thing kind of went over my head, so I have to ask, was that kind of your, was that kind of a tipping of the cap moment for you, like so you weren't that surprised with the big reveal at the end?
Um, so I knew something JJ was connected to Mr. Genret somehow. I knew it from that moment, but I literally couldn't figure it out. I was like, why is he being weird about it? Why is he focusing in on JJ? And I couldn't really figure it out. As it might have been like the third or fourth episode. Then I got an idea in my head about maybe Mr. Genret's daughter that passed away. Maybe she was JJ's mom because we never really hear anything about JJ's mom in the past seasons, I don't think. So you're always just
No, I
kind of
don't think so
wondering, like,
either.
it's always
Yeah,
like him, just his father, and like, his father is mean to him and doesn't treat him right. And,
a criminal.
but yeah, but and like, I don't know that anyone says where his mother was or if she like anyone really says anything about his mother. So I did have it pretty early in my mind. I was like, maybe that's his mother. And I was like, but didn't it say that her baby died too? So I was confused. I'm like, well, he can't be her child necessarily if her son died too. So I was confused about how that would have been the case, but I did suspect something very early on. I just didn't know what shape it was going to take.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the reveal too early, but now as we're talking about, I'm almost wondering if maybe JJ is gonna try to play some kind of um like hierarchy type of thing with Goat Island. Like this is actually mine
Mm,
as an heir.
maybe. Maybe.
Um, the other the one thing I found amusing is like a lot of was fixated on the amulet as far as it being a something to break the curse.
Right.
And as things are going on, like they look at it, it's a beautiful piece
Mm,
of of treasure, and it's got this inscription on the inside. And you're like 50, and the Pogues kind of thing too. Like we should get more than $50,000 for this piece. But as things kind of like piece together, and they find out the blue crown, and they go through the catacombs, I'm also like, was the amulet just like a ruse to just kind of like start to put the pieces in motion? Like maybe Genrette did his research on the kids and kind of figured like, okay, if I just kind of push them in the right direction,
yeah.
it'll kind of be a domino effect, and they'll find everything else along the path just from that one little ignition.
I think it was kind of a ploy to get J, like he knew obviously who JJ was. It was a ploy to get JJ involved um in something that kind of had an effect on his life.
Hmm. Yeah, and speaking of that, with the letter, now obviously we know why JJ was targeted in the letter when he's
Yeah.
writing it, but uh, before before that was known, did you kind of wonder like why is this going to JJ?
Um no, not really, because I knew that there was some connection and it had to be familial somehow.
Oh,
I
that's yeah,
just
you picked up on the
I just
affirmation, I
didn't really know
thought.
how. So when JJ's dad was just like, "Oh, I don't know anything about albatross," and he's like, he says to ask you about albatross and something else, and I don't remember what it was. And I thought that was a little bit fishy. I was like, obviously he's evading the truth, but when he was like, "I'm going to tell you everything," I'm like, okay, he's about to tell him that he's related to the Genrette somehow. Like, I just don't know how.
Yeah. And Albatross was the ship she
Name of
died
the
on,
ship.
right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. So obviously the treasure hunt, as you know, we can expect from watching several seasons of this show in the past, is the main fixture of the story. But there's a lot of other like subplots. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily call them distractions. It's almost like it's an obstacle course. It's almost like the subplots in the Outer Banks universe are like when you're like almost like a Mario Kart race when you're going and somebody throws a blue shell at you.
It's like grenades they have to dodge, right? Like
Yeah,
things that are going to ruin their life if they don't defuse them. Like they just have all these things and people coming after them. Like
yeah. And the first of which is something that didn't even need the treasure hunt to happen. They're buying the house. This guy, this sleazeball Mr. Zeasy, um,
that was his last
go,
name. I just noted that his name was Dale. I didn't know that was his last name.
excuse me, Miss Caption Queen. I read it in the subtitles.
Oh, you did. You
Yes.
did. I think they only said it once when they were at the auction and he kept bidding or something, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm Dale Zeasy or whatever." I think he only said it once, and I didn't write it down. I just wrote this guy Dale wants to like in my notes.
What a what a token name for someone who's cast as a sleazeball, sleazy Mr. Zeasy.
I it's almost comical, but
Yeah.
so I have a question, and I don't know if you got this or so. Okay, so question: why is this guy willing to bid that much on a decrepit house like JJ's house? So I
I
was
know.
okay. I was like, why is this guy willing to pony up that much money and like willing to try to purposely screw over these kids? Like he's obviously trying to make them miserable somehow. So there really wasn't any sort of indication at any point in these 5 episodes whether Dale works with Hollis, or like why is he trying to take these kids down and make them miserable? Why is he going through the trouble of the zoning and all that shit?
I I don't, especially with the play on the zoning, I don't put that out of the realm of possibility. But from what we know now, I kind of just assumed watching the show this is just a guy who has a typical kind of I don't want to, it's cliche to say corporate greed, but he kind of has like that type of mentality. Just
He just has money
I
to
want, I
spend.
want, I want. Yeah. And like
Okay.
$775,000 is probably not that much to him. I mean, it, it did kind of bother me a little bit when they're bidding and JJ goes $10 over, presumably his bid, and he goes, "Oh no,
Mm.
no, no, that's too rich for me." I'm like, "Really? An extra $10 is too rich for you?" So, but
It's
I
almost
I
like he
think
wanted to get the price up high
yeah.
to
Well, I
make
think
them
he
pay
just
for it. So
right.
why?
Well, because he probably figured, look at these street rat kids, they're not going to be able to afford this house. So I'll just let them buy it, wipe out their money, and then I'll just swoop in after the fact and pick it up for effectively less money because maybe they'll be desperate and be like an eminent domain situation where they just take a check cut from them that's less than what they paid just because they're in such bad debt. So probably that's kind of where my brain went with it. I think he's just playing them being in a hole from paying so much money on this house that he can just swoop in and get on a bargain later after the fact.
But the fact that he paid a visit to them in person with the zoning stuff and like he's just actively trying to make them miserable. Like, are we supposed to
Hmm.
believe that he's just an independent villain operating apart from what Hollis is doing?
I could see it both. I could see it playing out both. I could see him being some one of partners because it's implied that Hollis has several investors with Goat Island.
Hmm?
Um, so like I could see him being one of those,
Yeah.
but I could also see it being like I could also see it being like he's just and like you said, he's just an extracurricular villain, so to speak, or something like
He's
that.
just another villain they have to
Yeah.
dodge. Like,
Yeah, he's just kind of operating out here, and it's like really, dude, we got to deal with Rafe, we got to deal with this super ambitious, potentially evil woman, we got to deal with pirates that want to kill us for a piece
yeah.
of jewelry. You know what I mean? It's like we got to deal with you too.
Yeah, and so speaking of Hollis, is that her first name or her last name? I don't even know.
First name, yeah,
Yeah,
Hollis like
so
Thompson or something like that.
so she I don't that whole thing to me is just like weird. Like I get that she's
Creepy.
trying to yes, I get that she's trying to reel him in on the deal. She obviously knew Ward or
Hmm.
something. So when she says she knew Ward, I'm like, okay, this lady is probably in her 40s. She very easily like could have had an affair with Ward or, had some
Sure.
sleazy relationship with him. And she's like, oh, I know your daddy. Like, but but was it just me or was it more than like her just trying to, because obviously she knows that he has money now and she wants to get him in on this deal and she sees movement that he's, doing these real estate kind of deals and stuff. So I think it's more than that though, because then, I'm thinking he's a little bit older than Sarah. So he's maybe 21 years old.
Sure. Yeah.
Sarah's 19. He's maybe 21. This lady's in her 40s, mid 40s, I would say. And there were times when she was acting like she was like DTF. And I'm like, dude, this is a 21-year-old kid. And when he mentions, like, oh, yeah, I want it with Sophia or something, and she's like,
She kind
oh,
of,
and
yeah,
she
she
like
kind of does
kind
a
of like,
180.
yeah, it's just like, dude, are you really trying to sleep with this 21-year-old kid? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I know you want this deal, but like, what is your game? I don't
Well,
know.
and Rafe was teasing Sophia at one point. What are you jealous? A cougar's prowling around? So
She's more,
I picked up on that vibe too.
and like a cougar, the definition of a cougar is like 8 years, I believe, 7 or 8 years.
Oh, that's it?
She's easily 20 years older than him, if not more.
Oh, I figured that was just the norm for a cougar. I didn't
And
know
I
it was as
just
little as
I
eight
feel
years.
like that's way worse. Like her age difference, like the fact that she was like hitting on him and stuff, it was just weird.
Yeah, and she bothers me because it's very obvious she's a puppet master. And
Yeah.
like the easiest way for me to hate a character on screen is to portray them as a puppet master. So
Oh,
like
she's very much a puppet master.
she's playing Rafe. At some point she's playing Sophia because she
Yeah.
knows Sophia is hesitant and telling Rafe that she's hesitant. And then
Mm.
there's also something where I almost feel like she is kind of money dumb,
Mm-hmm.
where I don't even know if that's a real word. Um, where she's kind of almost trying to bite off more than she can chew with this Goat Island thing, and Rafe's gonna wind up getting screwed over
Mm.
because Sophia's father is the one um voicing caution to Sophia, which makes Sophia turn around and say to Rafe, "Hey, I don't know if this is such a good idea." And of course, Rafe's like, "Well, too late now. I already signed the paperwork." Um,
Well, he's
so
also like her father's like the go-between who's basically like, oh, well, if you want to sell Rafe out, you can get this money, like if you're
mhm.
interested. Like that whole thing was weird to me.
Yeah, so like I just there's there's an energy about Hollis that just makes me feel like she's kind of just being stupid with her money, you know? And it's gonna be like a crash, and I feel like there could be a scenario playing out where I could see it being a crash and burn situation.
Yeah. But obviously she's very powerful. So you're almost like, you know what? This lady is probably pulling the strings for a lot of people in town. The fact that Sophia's dad, who is a Pogue, like
Hmm.
just like it was like, oh, I know this person that knows this person, and they said like that whole thing was suspect. And I mean, honestly, when I saw Rafe talking about Sophia like that, I was like, you know what?
Oh,
To be honest, if I heard a guy that I was dating and I thought we were together or something and he's talking about me like that, like I'd be pissed too.
girl,
So
dump his ass.
yeah, so I don't blame her for doing that, but it does seem though that she obviously has guilt as time goes on, and Rafe is sort of changing, I think, in a positive way potentially. I mean, we don't know for sure if he's a good guy, but it seems like he's shifting in that direction. He's kind of, he's very affected by Ward's death, and he's crushed by it, and so he's kind of thinking about all these things that he did in the past, and he's regretting them, and he's has his dad's words in his mind saying family is everything. And then there's also laughably the flashbacks of him trying to drown his own
Brown
sister,
Sarah.
who he's now trying to like
Mhm.
reunite with and make nice with. So yeah, I mean it's weird that he's changing, but I think Sophia has some guilt because he sees her as a part of his future, and she's like feeling bad about what she did, but now she's starting to like him being sweet. So it's like she's in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, and not and it wasn't just him talking about her behind her back. It was also the turtle scene that kind of was like,
Yes.
this isn't cool.
Yeah, where you could see that she sided with the Pogues, and she's like, I don't like these people. I don't like who these people are.
I never thought I'd be rooting for a Rafe redemption arc, but I would be sooner to root for a Rafe redemption arc than a Topper redemption arc because I just cannot stand Topper.
You know what? I feel like there in the past seasons, I don't know if it was the first or second season, there were some moments with Topper, like you kind of thought he was maybe a good guy at the heart of it.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily really think that's the case anymore. And
No, I don't think so either.
I mean,
You're right though. There was one moment in a past season where he did something as a favor to Sarah.
yes.
Yeah. I forgot what it was, but he did something to help out Sarah, and in doing so helped out John B.
Right. He you could tell he definitely genuinely cared for Sarah, was really helping her out of a tough situation, but then he went and like burned John B's house. So it's like,
Yeah,
okay, you're not that good of a person, after all.
that scene on the beach
Yeah.
where it's like, what have you ever done to me? You mean like burning down my house?
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty funny. But I mean, even the scene of Rafe going into the shop and speaking to Kiara, and she's got like a
Mhm.
knife on the side. She's like wondering what he's
What
gonna say
Rafe
to
did.
her. She thinks she's gonna have to slash him, and he is sort of aggressive in his approach. I don't get me wrong, but he does say to her, which like was, and I think she was weirded out by it, like, I'm on your side though. Like, maybe I can help with this zoning business, if you know what I mean. Like, here's my
Yeah.
card. Like, tell Sarah maybe I can help with the zoning thing. Like, he's trying to get in with his sister again and trying to have a relationship with her again. But I think obviously Key is right to question how he's
Rafe.
appearing.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing here, maybe it's a full circle thing. Maybe the Mr. Zeasy thing is just him making life hell for them as a convenience to Rafe, so Rafe can swoop in, be the good guy, save the day, and reconcile with Sarah. Because I think you're right. You're right as far as any desire he has to change is solely dependent upon his memories of Ward.
Yeah, and it's almost like, what if he really genuinely is changing, but then and we're right on top of that change, and then the deal is going to screw him over. And then we're going to feel sorry for him because he's a changed person, and then he's going to be put in a bad position. So it's like that's almost like what it feels like they're setting up to happen.
Yeah, I know you had a more serious one. I had a little bit of a silly one because Shoop to me, as usual, he's trying to work all these different cases and he can't like put himself in the shoes to trust the Pogues.
Oh no, he can't. He'll never
So
trust him, I don't think.
yeah,
Never.
and I don't understand why because like he was there when they proved themselves in the right about
Mm,
Peterkin's death. So like I don't know why like he can't. Now that being said, JJ obviously told him a fib in the house.
yeah.
Um, when he's freaking out trying to get him out of there with the body with Terrence's body behind the sofa. Um, but like so like he obviously told him a fib at the end, and it was weird because up to the fib, I really thought JJ was just gonna level with him and be like, I know you're not gonna believe me, but let me tell you what's going on. You're gonna want to arrest me right now. So it's almost like these two just can't make nice. Like JJ doesn't trust that he can tell him the truth that Shoop won't arrest him, and Shoop like can't put himself forward as a trusting party to put JJ and the Pogues at ease to trust him.
Yeah, it's always kind of going to be a contentious relationship. I think it's just even when Shoop called and was like, "I need some surveillance on these kids," wherever they go, and then the guy in the boat was like, "Oh, sir, they're stepping on the gas. They're going way too fast.
Yeah,
I can't keep up." He's like, whatever." But it's like he obviously doesn't trust him, so he's trying to follow their every move. I mean, to a point, but still trying to follow up on him.
John B, we're being followed. He's just in a John boat. Can you outrun him? Yep. Pushes the throttle up. And I guess we could talk about this now. I mean, the big reveal at the end is obviously JJ's real father. Luke's not his birth father. And shocker, you hinted at it before, but shocker, this son-in-law of Mr. Genrette is dirty AF,
Yeah.
and he's working with Hollis. He might screw over Rafe. I really think that might happen. And like like actually maybe I inception myself with what I said a couple of minutes ago. Maybe this is like all kind of an inner working thing for Rafe to reconcile with Sarah. So it like this guy Groff he's like you said, he's a shady guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a shady guy. And the fact that when he's interviewed by Shoop, he says like, "Oh, well, what's happening to the house?" And he's like, "Oh, it belongs to the state," or something like that. And then he's like crying. And I was waiting for Shoop to go out of the room and like for him to look at the camera and see that the guy was like drying up his tears, because it was that fake where I was like, he doesn't care that his
Oh, oh,
father-in-law
oh,
died.
I was thinking to myself, like, it was funny. Actually, I'm watching that thing. I'm like, man, he's really pulling off the tears here. But I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, like, it looks authentic, but I don't trust that this guy is genuinely sad here. I feel like there's an ulterior motive.
Right. It's like he wants a piece of who that family is and what they own and everything like that. Like he can't be okay with everything going to the state or whatever. It seems a little bit more than that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I was with that very last shot of Hollis and Groff standing next to each other. I was shaking my head like, man, because you're like, how could the worst person literally be
Hmm.
JJ's dad? And so I was pretty sure that Larissa was his mom. But what I thought is that JJ's dad, Luke, was going to tell him, like, oh, by the way, like, Larissa was your mom. She died. That's why I took care of you. Like, you are a baby that we had. But when he said, like, I'm not your biological father, I was just like, I was not expecting that. I
Yeah.
thought for sure that Larissa was his mom, but I did not expect that Luke was not his father.
That would be
Luke is not your father.
yeah. Uh, I'm trying to think of the way to flip it around from Darth Vader's perspective. Luke is not your father. Um, and and that like that scene with the two of them together at the end was the same kind of jarring imagery to me as well. It's like how like it would take two people this bad to make me actually not to make me actually root for Rafe.
Yeah. I know, isn't that something? You're kind of rooting for Rafe in that circumstance if you find out the two, you know, people who have something to gain are working together to really try to take over everything.
Yeah. Um. So, I mean, I that's a climax type of moment, but there's another type of climax that I guess technically happened before that, but it was
Yeah.
more time was spent on it with them getting to the church and in Charleston and the cemetery, and they're seeing all the clues like, oh, here's the North Star, and they do that fake polio story to the
But
priest.
yeah.
Um, and Pope realizes that the floor is hollow, so they go down there. Talk about like extra villains and subplots. I mean, the pirates,
Yeah.
Lightner and this British woman, they're like the villains of the main part of the story, the treasure hunt, and we see the amulet used as a key. Like, of
Hmm.
course, I'm thinking like the mummy where they use the little lock box to open up the book of spells. So that's used as a key, and they go down in the tomb. The guy's like, I don't know whether he's just paranoid or like he actually saw Pope and Sarah. But he keeps flipping his head over his shoulder, and there's someone else down here. Um, and when they leave and they take this, they refer to it as a scroll, but I thought the same thing that you thought as far as it being a map. Um,
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And maybe since they couldn't translate the thing that, maybe there is some sort of map for the Blue Crown. Like that's what I was thinking that
mhm.
they got away with, but maybe potentially there's still something that they have to interpret and find.
And I think that the only other thing I'm wondering, because the only clue that wasn't revealed in the cemetery was what John B noticed about the gatekeeper, and he looks up and he sees a statue in the cemetery, and he's pointing down, and he looks at a grave, which is not the grave that Lightner and the captain are
Yeah.
opening up. And then they never go back to that because, of course, Hope and Sarah are trying to hide, and then they lock them in there. I don't necessarily know whether it was unknowingly or they kind of thought like maybe someone's down here, so let's make sure we lock it. So I'm also kind of wondering, like, as far as scroll versus map, is that even going to point to the blue crown? Because you've got this extra clue that was already in the amulet, and John B sees it and recognizes it, and we never return to it. So now I'm almost wondering, like, is the blue crown in there? Like maybe the amulet is just almost like a throw off the scent type of clue to go down in the catacombs.
Like a decoy, yeah, of some
Yeah.
sort. Yeah, it could be. I mean, yeah, that statue or grave was like an angel, something about an angel, and then there was the line about the gatekeeper. So that's something different entirely, but it just didn't line up with, Cleo seeing the pirate that killed Terrence and getting aggravated, and then John B trying to take a shot. And so yeah, they were kind of led away from that area, but there was sort of a light bulb moment where John B is like, why is that over there?
Yeah, and we don't see John B go back to the cemetery.
Yeah.
Obviously he doesn't realize that Pope and Sarah are trapped. We
Mm,
don't see him, but we don't see him go back to the cemetery to help them yet. Obviously he will. He went back and realized Cleo got, knocked on the ground or whatever.
yeah.
Um, but we haven't seen him go to help them because they're now trapped down here. The thing's flooding because it's
Yeah.
monsoon coming down, and of course Sarah's having her little tiff with all the rats coming in.
I was thinking I was thinking if I were in their shoes and I was going into a crypt that was under a church, like honestly, I don't know how. I actually happened to look up an article where they were saying that the rats were real, and they did add some additional like in post, but
Sure.
the actor who plays Pope was saying that they like he would try to like spend some time with the rats like before they were in the take, like he would like hold them or something, or he would like round them up like with like the animal trainer and like hand them off to the animal trainer, like because they're splashing around in the water and things like that, like they didn't want the rats to be like upset or angry, and so he would try to like have a relationship with the rats. And
Hello, my friend.
yeah, so but it was really grueling for them to shoot that because they're really in the water, they're in the water a ton, and yeah, so they had to film with real rats. I just cannot imagine.
You're aghast right now.
Ugh.
And the other one, and of course, John B. Like, of course, it couldn't have been this easy to just like John B. walks out with Twinkie, finds the gun, he's got a clear line of sight shot
Mm,
to Lightner. Of course, it can't be that easy, but we talked about the flashbacks that Rafe has with
mhm.
Ward, kind of, get the family back together, take care of your sister, that sort of thing. John B. It's kind of a forgotten thing of where he's left off since Big John died.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of haunting him now in this moment where he can kind of handle this situation and take out these bad guys, and he just kind of chokes in the moment because he's thinking back to the moment on the boat where Big John told him to shoot whoever that was. God, like three
Yeah,
seasons
I
ago.
forget. Yeah, that was probably the last moment he had a gun in his hand, right? So it's just
Yeah.
having that gun in his hand again kind of triggered that PTSD about that moment. So yeah, I mean, I felt bad for him in that moment, but yeah, that's why he's not able to take down that guy that Cleo definitely wanted to take down.
Yeah. Well, and Cleo is now has like extra motivation to do that because of Terrence, who I
Oh
thought
yeah.
first when he popped up, like I recognized him. I thought he was her father. I guess
Oh
he
yeah,
was just
yeah.
a father figure.
Yeah. I kind of
I
thought he
didn't.
was her father too.
Mm-hmm.
He looks
Because like I
familiar.
recognized him, but I couldn't totally remember from the previous season.
Yeah.
Um, so let's have some fun before we wrap up. Because I mean we've already kind of talked about a lot of what to look forward to in the second part. So let's kind of we'll kind of pivot and have a little fun here. Um, you and I both have loved watching this show since it started, and we kind of simultaneously started watching it, like independent of knowing the other was watching it.
Mm.
Um, so I found it like a kind of an accident that I found it on Netflix. I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and then I started watching. I got hooked right away. So let's be little fanboy fangirl for a moment. Who's your favorite Pogue, and how does the show's return in this fourth season solidify that choice?
So I have a favorite Pogue, but I also have like a Pogue that I'm more like, and there are two different people.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm talking about who's just my favorite, I would say JJ. Just because I
I've
think
done
I
a
had
three,
this,
two, one, JJ.
yeah, I had this moment of realization in the first season, I think. And I think I'm sure I tweeted about it. Someone can pull that up from years ago. But I had a realization. I was like, you know what? I was like, JJ, and the actor's name is Rudy, right? Rudy something.
Rudy Panko.
Yeah. So I just had this realization that he is a blonde American Harry Styles.
And when I looked over what you wrote down before, I saw that, and the first thing that popped in my mind is like Harry Styles without the trendy fashion questionable choices. But then it dawned on me like JJ, like maybe Harry Styles is JJ if JJ was a kook.
Yeah, and I remember tweeting about it, and I had some like fangirls that were like, now oh, I see it, like people were agreeing with me. But I just, generally I have sympathy for him because of his situation, his tough upbringing, and you root for him to actually become something from nothing, right? That's kind of the focus. But from what a lot of people are talking about and comments on social I've seen and on groups, a lot of fans of the show kind of fear that, like, they like the fact that he was really focused on this season, but they also fear that because they think that that means that they're preparing to write him off or kill him off. And you know what? Honestly, it could be because if he's a Genrette, maybe he's cursed. So maybe
That's
he would
true.
be prone to danger. Maybe some freak accident would happen. And, I guess the actor Rudy, and he's currently in this play. I don't know if it's on Broadway or off Broadway or what, but he's in this very dramatic, serious play recently. And I guess people are kind of questioning whether he's wanting to continue to be on this show that's very, not serious and not extremely dramatic, and that he kind of favors the more like, I'm going to be an actor,
An actor.
an actor.
To be or not to be.
Exactly. But you know how there are some actors who like don't like they take themselves too seriously. Like I
Yeah.
don't really think he's like that. I saw him on like a morning show the other day, and he doesn't seem like he's pretentious like that at all. But maybe he is looking for more serious roles. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he asked to be written off. Like, who knows?
I hope that he doesn't view Outer Banks as not a serious role. Only I'm thinking that obviously I don't want to see him leave the show, but I mean it's got a good run. It's got a good run going on it, and it has a following, and there's been there's a level of commit, and it kind of came out of nowhere. Like it kind of became a popular show. I feel like Netflix greenlit it as like an experiment. All right, let's just see how this works, and then people kind of took to it.
Yeah.
So like I would be a little, I don't know if disappointed or upset is the right word, but I wouldn't necessarily like to know if he actually thought of the show as a not serious project.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what people are assuming. I don't know that just because he's doing this play that's just very different from Outer Banks. I think some people are assuming that like he's getting an itch to leave.
Hmm.
So I could kind of see that. I mean, his character has been very focused on extraordinarily much this season. So
Yeah.
I could see why people are making that argument. I mean, I hope he doesn't die, but
So I think the my I definitely wrote a little something like that down, but going in a completely different direction. Because JJ has always resonated with me. He's a rebel. He's trigger happy in his
Yeah.
ambition. He acts on his gut. He takes risks. He's extremely reckless. I can't necessarily say
Oh
I'm
yeah.
necessarily reckless, but he's loyal to a fault. And
Hmm.
like I was very happy to see him be more of the focal point because to me, the show over past seasons, the focal point's been on the other Pogues. Like
Yeah.
Pope kind of had his moment in the sun
Yep.
early on, and
Kiara
John B
did,
and Sarah
Sarah.
obviously did, yeah. So to me, I kind of just feel like it's JJ's turn
Yeah.
to be the kind of uh center point,
Hmm.
for lack of a better word, of the story. So I'm kind of maybe I'm just being too optimistic and looking at it glass half full as far as like it's just JJ's turn to be the star.
Yeah. Which I hope that's the case. That's what I really hope. I don't want him to be written off. I hope, I hope the show goes another couple seasons. So
Yeah. Um, Pope is another one to me that like I said before, he's kind of the yang to JJ's yin, and he's all business. He's a Pope through and through, but he still has this inner desire to kind of get out of the Outer Banks
mm.
and make a different life for himself. So he's like always steadfast in this higher plan ambition.
Yeah, I would say as far as which Pogue I'm most like, I would say I'm most like Pope, just in the fact that he's very level-headed, logical. He's always thinking, like he was, went to that pirate museum and he's like, oh man, and he's,
Yeah.
going
Fast forward.
over, yeah, going over the journal. He's very practical, especially with the money. He was the one that's like, all right, guys, we got to tighten this up. Like, can't be spending this much on this. Like, and that's kind of how I am. It's just very, I'm always thinking, like when I take a shower, I'm always thinking of, okay, I'm gonna do this, and what can I do with, like, I just, that's where I have my good ideas. Like I'm kind of like Pope in that way.
When I have a good idea in the shower, I forget it 10 minutes later.
Oh no, I always remember it, and then I'm telling my husband or telling someone else, I'm like, I just thought of something, and they're like, why are you thinking about this certain thing?
Yeah.
And it just, that's when I do my best thinking.
Getting clean.
Yeah.
And the other one, of course, I mean, John B and Sarah are, I mean, I don't want to sound like a loser for saying this, but they're adorable. I'll admit it. And the the moment in the show, like I said, it's cliche to think like, their love was forged in trauma, but the part of me that kind of like took me back to the John B and Sarah emotions and relationship from the previous seasons was when they're exchanging the rings. And he's
Yeah.
saying, "Here's your ring. I carved it out of a tree that was part of the chateau." Something so profound and
Yeah.
pivotal. And I think if I'm not mistaken, they carved their names in the tree or something.
Yes.
So like it's something so meaningful to their relationship, and she gives him her ring that she made for him. It's like, here's this. I made it out of PBR cans.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was funny. Well, the fact that there were such difference in materials and in sentimentality, but also uh it was funny that they had a surprise for each other, and it was the same surprise of the rings. Like they didn't know that they were each going to give each other a ring, but it was different materials and a little bit of different emotions.
And they counted down three, two, one. We'll both give it to you at the same time. And Sarah pulls hers out at
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they still have kind of like it's not really like a one-upsmanship type of thing, but it's like a cutesy, friendly couple competition thing. I don't know what the individual word for that is,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, this is like the two of them together. Like, and we've talked about this in the past, how they're like normal people pretty. Like they're not Hollywood starlet, red carpet glitzy type of deal. They like you could see them on the red carpet, but you could also see them walking down Main Street. And you're like, damn, those are pretty people.
Yeah, they're not like, I don't want to say they're plain, but I don't want to say that they're typical, how like have the typical Hollywood look, because they don't, but I do think this season, like I like where they're at because it seems like, you know, they've been through a lot. Like they've literally almost died when they've been together. Like they've just been through a lot of danger. Like they've seen each other at their worst, like it like helped each other go through the worst moments. And I think right now, like they're kind of swept up. Well, especially John B is swept up in like, this is great. Like, I just want to feel this feeling forever. And so he just has this fantasy of what their life is. And Sarah's kind of wanting to bring him back down to earth. Like, listen, we're 19, you know, he's talking about like, yeah, let's get married. I'll get you a ring. Let's have kids. And she's like, hold on. Like we're 19.
I can't even
like,
drink
I'm not,
legally.
yeah, like so I just think that's funny that he's just in it. And it's not that she's not in it, it's just she wants to be realistic about it. She's like, we have our whole lives to be together, so I don't want to just wish everything away right now.
My biological clock, I'm 19. Yeah. So if you couldn't tell, we love this show and we love covering this one, and we will love to cover the second one coming up in a few weeks time. So watch the first half, watch our show, and then rinse repeat the next time around. If you enjoy listening to us as a general, we would very much appreciate a 5-star rating on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, where you can also find us on Google Podcasts and iHeartRadio if you enjoy listening to us on the go. But if you want to see us and our general antics and fun personalities, check out video on YouTube and Rumble as well. Follow along on social. She is Binge to Ginge, that is dots between the words, on Instagram, and all one word, Binge to Ginge, on TikTok. And I am Egg2 Palmetto, that is the number 2. Give us both follows, and next up, episode 5, we are staying on the island, albeit a different island, and checking out to see if Vince Vaughn's dry and subtle yet blunt comedic musings play well in a detective drama in Apple TV's Bad Monkey. Not a series to catch up on a lot of episodes, so it's fresh to check it out. You'll be able to get that out of the way and then watch our review straight away. Until that very next real review, Red signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
No. Try not. Do. Or do not.
Because I don't want no scrubs.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Blow up! Peace! Smile, you son of a...
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Hey, it's not funny anymore.
Chelsea references. Still nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.